Hey everybody, Tom King and real estate extraordinaire Terrence Stevens coming to you for the podcast, episode 2 of the Business of Life in Black and White. Before we do topic, Mr. T, how we doing, brother?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a beautiful day, hopefully a beautiful day wherever you are right now. Take a deep breath, soak it all in. We made it to another day and we're able to live in our purpose. So our purpose today is to shed some education and some perspective on you. And I think Tom's going to lead us off with that. So let's roll.
Let's do it, buddy. Before we get on here, we talked about a few things, and I think what we settled on is having a conversation about buying versus selling or selling versus buying, and where this market has us, and which is the better direction to go, if there is one, when you got a house that you want to buy and one that you got to sell. So the mortgage side is not nearly as interesting as the real estate side. So why doesn't your handsome self lead us off
Yes.
and start that combo?
Yes, the name of the game in real estate is leverage, right? I've got clients, and typically my best clients, those who are able to win in this market right now, are those who have the leverage, right? And what does leverage mean in this case? Well, typically, if you're looking to buy a home, you're going to want to have one of a few things, okay? A lot of money, a lot of patience, but a big old strategy. Because if you are looking to buy without already having something to sell, then you're indeed in a good position to attack the market and not worry about any type of contingencies or stipulations that you might need to pursue the house that you have a goal in buying. But if you are indeed already the owner of a property, one that you consider your owner occupied home, and obviously you don't care to hold two mortgages, the goal would be to strategically sell the property before you purchased another property. Now, in this market, as a market is heating up in spring going to summer, we're seeing multiple offers again. Now, this is very state specific, very county specific, and very school district specific, but we are seeing multiple offers in a market that has historically over the last couple of months been some of our highest interest rates. So please don't let it be confused. Real estate is being bought and sold daily. And I'm sure Tom and anybody else in the industry can attest to that. But how do you set yourself up for the best win? How do you set yourself up to be in the best leverageable position? If you own a property, I am going to recommend that you find a way to strategically sell your property with the idea of keeping some level of occupancy, a matter of days of occupancy, hopefully about 2 weeks to a month, to give yourself a cushion and be able to move forward with a property without having a sell contingency in place. This also gives you the opportunity, and in reality, the opportunity of carrying the equity that you gain from your sale and putting that towards the new purchase of a property, which does one of a few things: lowers your overall payment, gives you the opportunity to put money down, and shows the seller good faith that they don't have to wait on you to purchase their property, because they indeed might be in the same position looking to sell a property, to buy a property. This is all about a cycle. So, in my honest opinion, if you own a property and you're looking to sell that property, work with somebody who talks strategy, talks numbers, does the homework before you attack the market. That is some of my most successful transactions. So my clients and I really pick apart what their goals are, what the strategy needs to be to move forward with the best type of effort. But if you're looking to buy before you sell, there are a few financial things, there are a few strategy things that you must ensure. And one of those bounces right back to Tom. You've got to be able to hold both mortgages financially. And right now, that might be extremely hard for your average homeowner with debt to income issues, because frankly, your new mortgage might indeed be 2 times your old mortgage with the way that prices have risen and the way that interest rates have risen. So, Tom, what say ye? Is it possible for people to hold 2 mortgages in this market so they can buy and then vacate their old house and then sell that house after the fact?
Yeah, so I'll go down that rabbit hole and kind of go off on my rant. But real quick before I do, I haven't seen a lot of temporary occupancy agreements on stuff that we've been dealing with. And, again, on our side, because we're on the mortgage side, we're kind of on the end of that transaction anyway. But is that realistic? Have you?
It's very COVID coded. And what I mean by that is during COVID, we saw people stipulating within their contracts all types of things. I'll cook your family dinner for a year if you buy me this house. If you allow me to buy this house, I'll give you 3 months of temporary occupancy, which might be against the rules, but we won't talk about that, right? What are the things that people are willing to do to buy your property? Because there are less buyers in the market, that also means that there's less negotiable items. But I do believe, depending on the perfect situation, the perfect storm, that if you're looking to sell before you buy, that you have to find a buyer who's okay with knowing I can close and I'll give the seller the right amount of time. We just executed one of these, right? I had a seller looking to sell and needing to buy. Strategy spoke. We made it happen within 2 days. 2 days transaction, but we had a week worth of temporary occupancy. It happens. It is just about the negotiable skills and the strategy behind who you're working with.
I feel like that's a self promo, but I'll leave it there.
It is indeed a self promo.
All right, so I'm with you. I think that's best case scenario, right? It's a lot easier for us on our side. You sell your other house, you got 200 grand sitting in the bank, you go buy the new one, makes my life easy. I agree with you, and yet I also think that, as always, you are eternally optimistic, and that's probably harder for most people to do. Living with mom and dad when you're 45 years old kind of sucks. We get a lot of people that are buying houses that are getting married, or I got a closing I had yesterday. They're having a baby like later this week, so they don't really have the choice to live somewhere temporarily while they're got all this other stuff going on in their life. So on our side, yeah, I mean, it's, interest rates are hard because of that, right? You're taking on, like you said, a mortgage payment on the new house that's, twice or 3 times what the old one was. So not only are you carrying 2 mortgages, but your new mortgage is a huge one. So it definitely makes it a challenge to qualify for it. There's 2 pieces of it, I guess, to back up, right? Is one, you got to qualify for carrying both the mortgages in theory, and 2, you got to come up with the money for the down payment on the new one, right? Those are the 2 pieces of the puzzle. Coming up with the money, I'll start with that one. It's you got strategies there, right? You hit it on the head. You just got to have a strategy. You got to know what your plan is. A whole bunch of different ways you can do it. First and foremost, when you go to buy the new house, you don't have to put 20% down, right? Even if you've got 200 grand in equity in your old house and you want to ultimately put that down on the new one, you don't have to start, right? You can buy the new one. All you got to do is put 5% down, right? So just come up with 5%. So borrow money from your 401k. Most people forget that you can pull money out of your 401k as a loan. And most of them, when you're buying a piece of real estate with it, once you pay it back, all you did was pay a little bit of interest. There's no fees, there's no taxes taken out. You're borrowing your own money, you're paying yourself some interest. So get a gift from mom and dad. Take a HELOC on the house that you're selling, right? Come up with a way to beg, borrow, and steal and get 5%. Beg, borrow, and steal another 10 grand for your closing costs. You buy the new house, and then the recast is what's kind of changed that game. So what a recast is you bought the new house with 5% down, you close, you move in. A month later, to your point, you get their house sold. Now they've got this 200 grand. You don't have to refinance. You take the 200 grand. Almost all lenders now and almost all loans will allow for a recast. So I took the 200 grand. I paid down my new mortgage by $200,000. I paid them a $150 fee to do the recast. And the mortgage company will then re-amortize my loan for the entire remainder of the 360 months that you took it for, to reduce the payment to what it would have been if you would have put the $200,000 down up front. So that's the
Now,
huge.
Tom, let me interrupt for a second on this recast. Just to clarify, we're saying that after the fact that you're able to change the term of your loan, right? Your interest rate won't change. You're not refinancing, but you are re-amortizing your whole loan so that your principal balance now becomes less and your payment is reflective of that. Taxes don't change. HOA doesn't change. Your interest and your principal change.
Yeah, and I'm not picking on you. You use the word term. The term doesn't change. The term even stays the same, right? Because the term is a 30-year loan. So you made 2 payments on the loan with 5% down. You put the money down, your extra cash in, like you said, it pays the balance down. And then every month for the remainder of the 360, your payment now has dropped to what it is based on that new balance of the house.
How long does one have the opportunity to recast their mortgage?
It depends. Typically you've got to wait 2 months in order to do it. The mortgage companies need to kind of get you into the servicing portfolio and kind of figure out what the heck they're doing. So you got to wait 2 months. Most of them, it doesn't matter. You can do as many times as you want, and you can do it at any point after the 2 months up until the very end. There's typically just a couple rules. Like, again, you got to wait the 2 months. You got to pay the fee. Most of the time, you got to put down at least $10,000 in total to do the recast. But really, the rules kind of beyond that are negligible. The only caveat to that is it's never guaranteed, right? Lord only knows what's going to happen to the servicing of your loan. Everybody loves to complain about, hey, so and so sold my loan, and so and so. So, like, dude, it's the game. Your loan's going to get sold. Somebody's going to buy it. 99% of servicers will allow the recast, but just so we don't get ourselves in trouble, like it isn't a guarantee. I mean, it is something you gotta, a 1% risk on. But that's the gist of it, right? So get the house, get into the house with minimum down, find a way, then turn around and recast it, and then the what was the other piece I said? Remind me. What was my one of the two things? Oh, the money down and then qualifying for both the payments. So if you're going to buy before you sell, like you said, you've got to qualify carrying both those payments. Meaning, when you apply for the new mortgage, you're applying for the new mortgage with your old mortgage still as a debt, in addition to your car, or your student loans, or whatever, right? So now my income has to be here, and I've got these debts that are here, and you typically got to be above that or below that 50% mark, right? So my income's got to be at least twice what the new mortgage, my old mortgage, and all my other debts are. And like you said, that can be complicated. A couple different things there. Reminder that mortgage companies are using your gross income, not your net income, which seems counterintuitive, but you've got a little more, most people have a little more margin than they think. There's also a couple kind of fun ways around that. In theory, and not in theory, in practice, Fannie Mae will allow for you to present a lease agreement on your current primary residence. We call it your departing primary residence, and that will offset your mortgage payment. So what you are proclaiming to Fannie Mae in your loan application is that you are going to rent your house out when you leave it and go buy the new one. Obviously, you can't turn around and sell it 2 days later in that scenario. But Fannie Mae will allow for a 30-day lease. You can, by letter of the law to Fannie Mae, lease your current property for 30 days, even to a family member. And that lease will offset your mortgage payment. So, you're certainly
We're cooking grease there.
you're getting into some crazy stuff when you pull that off. And obviously, I am not suggesting anything fraudulent. And you've got to actually get a lease and do what you said that you're going to do, or you are committing mortgage fraud. And you certainly don't want to do that, because I don't want to go to jail, and neither do you. But that is a strategy, right? There are people that will lease their house out for a little bit and then turn around and sell it, once that lease expires, and move on that way. So, you just gotta, like you said, you gotta deal with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Fannie and Freddie have a specific guideline for your debt to income ratios. You walk into Wells Fargo, they're not going to let you push the limits on debt to income ratio. We're going to let you do whatever Fannie and Freddie tell you that you can do, right? That's the beauty of working with somebody that sells direct, is you can avoid some of that stuff. So
so as a recap, this thing sounds like, and I know that it is in my experience, all about strategy. Right? There are a million ways, as my grandmother says, and as old country folklore says, there is a million ways to skin a cat. And the real estate game is indeed just that. There are a million ways to attack this thing. And it is important for you as a consumer who's looking to purchase, sell, invest, what are the ways that I'm able to do this in my particular situation? I have investors coming from different different cities, looking to potentially invest because they can't buy in their city something like San Francisco, but they find value in something like in Atlanta. And I've got clients here who know that they need to upgrade, but how are they going to do it? They don't want to be displaced from their home. They don't want to sell before they find something to buy. And that's why most people would like to buy before they sell. They found something, that's the perfect home. But what about the 5 to 10 other people who want to go attack that home, put an offer on it, and have no contingencies in place? This thing is indeed about strategy, and it is about your specific strategy. Do not try to steal, take, or borrow the strategy of other people because it might not apply to your situation. Work with people who will be able to give you a game plan, stay on you about the tasks that you need to do to put yourself in a winning position, and ultimately have faith that they know what they're talking about. This is not myself or Tom's first rodeo in making this thing happen for people who have goals. That's why you work with people who work well with one another and they understand the essence of strategy.
I think that's it's always something. It is something that you have become very good at, and something I appreciate about you is really thinking through individual strategies. Because especially in this market right now that the market has shifted a little bit, it is still super hot. Inventory is still a problem, and yet we're also seeing listings sit for a while now in some circumstances. So there are
It
houses
is.
attack and maybe present a contingency and get it, and there are houses where they're not even going to return your phone call unless you're presenting all appraisal, right? So.
It's it. And so you have to understand it. And again, for clients who are looking to do specific things with their goals, please understand that every situation is going to be different. Every house that you have interest in is going to be different. If you are looking to gain more money in closing costs from the seller, if you're looking for temporary occupancy from a buyer, it is all house specific. It is all situational to you. So, indeed, start with the strategy. Work with the people who understand you, who ask you the important questions. What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? What sacrifices are you willing to make to get there? And ultimately, when all of those questions are answered, be able to say, I'm trusting the people that I work with to make this happen for me, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I'm working alongside them to see it happen. And that is going to be the crucial part. We are not miracle workers. We are only going to give you the best strategy, make sure that it's implemented on time and with execution. And from there, I have never seen a client fail that has listened to us in the long run. But I have seen some clients fail. Okay. And so ultimately, strategy is key. You can buy before you sell. You understand that there are certain parameters to do that. But in the best case scenario, selling before you buy your next house gives you the leverage of equity to use, gives you the leverage of time to use, and you put yourself in position where you can attack an offer with less stipulations than many others around you, and you ultimately become the most favorable in position to win the offer.
All right, this conversation is way too buttoned up and professional and informational for me, so we're gonna end the serious part of it there and have a little more fun. So last week we closed by discussing some bad life choices that you and I were making. Mine is resulting in me currently wearing 2 knee braces right now while we have this conversation. So this week, you told me a story before we came on here, and you can repeat that story if you want, or you can go a different direction. But the question is this. The question, and I'll make it open-ended enough to fit in that story again if you want to go there. I've been doing this for 22 years. You haven't obviously been as long, but you're half my age. So what is the craziest thing you've ever seen written into a contract, or the craziest why we're not going to make closing today experience that you've ever had?
Whew, my goodness.
I'll tell you mine, you think.
Please.
And I'm gonna, yeah, no, I won't call names out. Um, I had I had an agent buddy of mine, and it's not his doing. So I thought about calling him out, but I'm not going to. Nobody cares. The contract that his seller was presented in the contract. This was pre-COVID. In the contract, the buyer was so pissed off at the negotiations and felt like he was getting screwed that he had a special stipulation that said that the seller had to bring him a 1 pound bag of peanut M&Ms at the closing. And I think the story was the seller kind of was happy enough with the offer that he was like, sure, whatever, this is stupid, no big deal. So seller shows up for closing and does not,
Empty-handed.
he brought a small bag of peanut M&Ms. The buyers would not sign, made the listing agent leave, go to the store and buy the appropriate size bag of peanut M&Ms, signed and closed. And
We
that is
love
not a lie.
we love leverage. Okay. If it is written, it is law. You have signed it. My story is a little more disheartening as an agent. As an agent, you are not done your duties until clients, both sides, sign at the closing table. So just about 2 years ago, I was in a transaction where we got all the way to the closing table. Right after a walkthrough, everybody was smiling, everybody was happy. And my buyers get to the closing table, they get out of the car, and they say, we don't want the house. And I have never in my 7 years of being in real estate felt my heart drop to my stomach.
This wasn't when you called me and I was coaching third base at that travel baseball tournament,
It
was it?
probably is. I'm going to call you first because I lost my mind, but
How do I undo the transaction? I
I
believe.
kept a certain level of composure, and there was no really good reason behind their thought. But what I had to do was make peace with their decision, because at the end of the day, they hadn't signed and they had every right to decide this isn't the house for us. But it was a lesson for me to finish what I started as best as I can and allow the chips fall where they may. We got to the closing table 15 minutes before closing, and the buyer couple decided this isn't the house for us. And the sellers had already moved out of the property. They had already moved into a new property. And ultimately, everybody was stuck holding a big pile of poop in their hands, including the agents who were just happy to get to that day. So, say all that to say, agents, lenders, clients, nothing is settled until you close on the dotted line. And even after that fact, there are stipulations that can remain through the closing. Make sure you read your contracts. Make sure you understand exactly what you're signing up for. And if you indeed need to bring a 1 pound bag of peanut M&Ms, make sure you do.
All right, I have a story for you, but I'm going to tell you off air because it's a little rough. That's it, folks. Tom King, Terrence Stevens, The Business of Life in Black and White. We will see you next week.
See you next week.